Alright fellas, welcome back again to an episode of Tactical Enlightenment. Our YouTube channel is dedicated to all things Bannerlord related, and especially advanced battlefield command and tactics, and we are dedicated to this Aserai campaign. And this offshoot of the Aserai campaign, this Peasants Revolt. I need to do a little bit of an update here. We will walk you through some of the constituents of this campaign. You can see our army here, kind of a mix of minor clans and mercenaries. We got some bushwhackers and militia. But there's no normal troop line in our army, right? You won't see any Aserai Vanguard Faris or Palace Guards. We are doing this the scuzzy way in this campaign. Now, we've carved out a little realm down here in Aserai territory. We now have, what, 3 or 4 cities? I guess Hassan Folk makes 4 cities. We just took Sanala. It was an entire episode kind of dealing with the defending forces and then finally forcing our way in there. That is actually acting as bait right now. There's not a huge force there. We did reinforce Ayakis, but it's a bit of a mirage. You see the defenders there, 640 in the garrison, but then when you take a closer look, 263 looters and some other scuzzy troops that we're of course picking up for free since we are a bandit thug leader, right? We continue to show the map here. We've got Hassan Folk over here. This has not been attacked, but again, it's sort of paper-thin veil of defense there with a bunch of marauders and militia spearmen and 300 looters. So even though we do have a lot of troops, there's a lot of scuzzy troops out there defending our various garrisons. A little glance here at Hugh the Hammer. Right, this guy's got a new name. We've did a little original spelling there. This guy's going to be Hugh the Hammer. It doesn't make sense to me that some Aserai guy would be named H-U-G-H. So he is Hugh the Hammer. And of course, that is because his two-handed skill and his custom weapon hammer make him an absolute beast. That two-handed skill comes from the smithing skill over-speccing his two-handed skill to 6 points. Most of the rest of his armor is pretty bad, and so that makes him fairly vulnerable. And we're purposefully not upgrading to plate armor in this campaign. That's one of the many handicaps that we are using. Now, we're obviously using the high-end banners, and we're using as many other advantages as we can, but we're skipping plate armor, we're skipping the normal troop lines, we're making sure our companions don't have troop lines, etc. So Qasira is an Aserai city that's right in the middle of our empire here. This makes it a logical choice to add this to our retinue, add this to our arsenal of cities where we can put bandits. I saw a looter division of almost 400 right at the edge of this map before we started this, so we'll be able to take this city and then stick a whole bunch of looters. You can picture them rampaging through all the shops and stuff like that as they become the garrison of the city. It'd be funny to see in real life. Jamayeh Castle, that is close. So the Aserai and the Southern Empire are both present near us here. Of course, we're at war with multiple kingdoms, but the Aserai and the Southern Empire are the most present threats. Now, Jamayeh Castle has a very large garrison, even though, again, a lot of them are those mounted pillagers, which are tier 2 archers, basically. So the Aserai are at war with us, and you can see they have 3 times our strength, but that hasn't stopped us from inflicting serious losses on them. The Khazate just declared war on us, and obviously we're hugely outnumbered. They're not yet a major problem because they're a long ways away. In fact, I think Khazate is dealing with Sturgia up north. So we're going to build the normal assortment of siege weapons here. Madani Castle, damn, we're being... I think that's on the other side here. So we're being sandwiched by sieges here. Yeah. So that's a relatively new garrison. That one might be a little bit more vulnerable. 155 defenders. Jamayeh Castle's closer though. So here's what I want to do here. I want to try to take this city, do so in a fairly expeditious manner, a very efficient manner, and then rocket over to Jamayeh. And hopefully we can even defend Madani Castle as well. This guy... It looks like he's trying to join one of the Aserai forces that are sieging, and he can't get by us, evidently, because we're here with our massive army of looters. He doesn't want to get looted, right? If he tries to cross over here, all of a sudden there's going to be a bunch of guys with pickaxes taking all his shit. And of course, we're going to pillage whenever we can, right? Looters are all about pillaging. Now, this engineering skill continues to come in handy, right? Hugh the Hammer. I'll try to get used to saying his name often. Obviously, there are going to be times where I call this guy Wazoo or Wazuban from the original Aserai campaign. I might even call this guy Zuvan. Hell, who knows what I'll call him. But this guy here has really good siege skill. We've kind of hedged a few of the skills. I would like to get his throwing up higher, but his engineering still is 300 plus, and that's really going to help us siege and defend, right? You're going to have to do a lot of both in a normal campaign. I really sort of lengthened this out in the Aserai campaign, and what I learned is that having 10 points, 10 attribute points in siege, and then maxing out siege, medicine, steward, engineering, makes your character a major boss on the battlefield. Not just the battlefield, of course, but the campaign map, and they're interrelated. Here we destroy all of the enemy counter siege. We have our own siege. We've got quite a few ranged units in our army, even though a lot of them are mounted pillagers and fucking brigands and shit like that. But we have quite a few lake rats and quite a few of the Beni Zalal units. So it's going to be Javelin City, plenty of arrows. We even have like 30 Boer veterans that I've been slowly recruiting and then protecting by putting them in squares. Now I'm aligning these catapults so I can flame some of the defenders here. Much of this process is the same as the Aserai campaign, just with different units, different tactics. Keep Siege really does boil down to a steady ingredient list, right? Striking where you can, and obviously trying to apply pressure to the enemy at multiple spots. Now I'm trying to get some units here with decreased, there we go, decreased taken ranged attack damage, of course, because the enemy is going to be shooting at us as we try to approach. Now, I like to have 2 or 3 divisions that I micromanage heavily in siege. I like to cause a breach. A breach is basically where you overrun the defenses at a location, and I'm going to aim for the right here of these 2 ladders. I think we'll be able to get troops up there. It's further from the main gate, but that'll also mean we can reinforce more troops. Now, I'm going to leave the 1st Division alone because they're on the ram. I want them doing the ram thing. But we will take this 3rd Division of infantry and rush the siege tower with that. So 3rd, let's get the 4th and 5th spread out basically to shell the enemy if they try to attack us with ranged units. And then, of course, I'm also going to man a catapult. You guys have been seeing me more and more do that. Even though the AI does a decent job, I'm still trying to level Wazuban's siege skills. And frankly, I'm trying to get better at catapults myself. I can't profess to be an expert at Bannerlord when there are various parts of the game where I'm mediocre at best. Siege, offensive siege is one of those areas when it comes to catapults. I do feel that I have plenty to offer players when it comes to tactics, your troop alignment, your general strategy, but I need to hone my catapult skills so that I can cause basically mass carnage for our troops to then enter the city. It's not always easy. Sometimes the enemy is really hard to see, or sometimes, shit, come back here. Sometimes, of course, your own troops get in the way and end up scorching your own guys, right? So it's a process, but these guys, they get to be my guinea pigs here as I learn. Where'd I fucking park my horse? Damn it. I'm always losing my horse now that I get older. So these looters and mounted pillagers and shit, up they go the ladder here. A lot of these guys are going to get killed, but we're just trying to pressure the enemy. This is not going to be our primary attack. Now, if you pull the guys off that ram, those guys get kind of out of sorts. So I like to leave whatever division is on the ram. In this case, it's the 1st. I like to leave those guys there. That way they do their thing. Now, it's hard to beat that, right? These guys just shredded like 50 defenders. In fact, they killed most of the troops that I was probably hoping to kill here. But we will just leave their same configuration and fire off some shots here. Getting the aim down at this kind of a distance, especially since troops move between the time you fire it and the time it lands, is obviously a highly inaccurate science, but you do the very best you can. Now, one thing you can do is you can just set those ladders up and a handful of troops to climb them and keep the rest of the troops off the ladder. What that'll do is make sure that mostly the enemy's on the walls, and of course then your shots will hit almost entirely enemy units, right? Because yours simply aren't up there. That's a longer process. You can take like 30 or 40 minutes in a keep siege like this and be, oh shit, look at these guys racing across here. Let's scorch these guys before they run across. We got one at least. There's a whole bunch of defenders trying to barrel in on our troops here. If I could just get one hit, I would be thrilled. Come on, baby, let's dial this shit in. Don't go anywhere, horse. I want you still. Well, we didn't do great in siege this battle here, but every little bit counts, and that siege skill continues to grow. Of course, you get it also just for building the trebuchets beforehand. I actually don't see a lot of defenders on the walls. I think our javelin archer units here destroyed a lot of them. Of course, those 2 catapults destroyed a lot of them as well. And again, I can't emphasize how important it is to have that huge siege skill. Because of that, pre-battle, when you're in the little campaign map, if you have 2 catapults and 2 trebuchets, and high siege skill, in this case he has 300 engineering, very quickly the enemy has no siege weapons at all, and you just dominate the battlefield. It's like Desert Storm for the Americans, where we had complete air superiority. The battle's already over, right? The next day when the daylight bursts out, all you see is a bunch of burned out Iraqi tanks because they had no chance, right? They just got smoked by stealth bombers. All right, so let's get some infantry and archers pushed down here on this side of the city. Honestly, the efficiency of our army here is fucking with my plans to have, you know, a really cool battle here. I can't make, you know, like epic battles without it being obvious and sort of staged. So sometimes there are going to be battles where it's just a steamroller effect, even when you have a bunch of bandits like this, and that's just going to be par for the course. I will over narrate or even just skip altogether some sieges in this campaign. You might even miss a week of game time, and that's just us plowing through the road here, where you don't need to see us crushing 400 militia archers in a siege destruction like this, right? You see the enemy has 0 chance here. I can just bring my fucking hammer out here. Hugh the hammer gets unleashed on the enemy, and their troops are going to start to melt away. They do have a fuck ton of troops here, and they are making a very vigorous defense. But very quickly, we're going to have troops behind us here, unless I get fucking killed. They got a bunch of axemen chasing after me. Once we get going here, this is just going to be a very quick rout. Hopefully there are some mega difficult siege assaults in this campaign, right? It's going to be much harder with bandits and militia and even Lake Rat Wreckers, right? These guys do not have good offensive power. I'm just going to wade in here. Sometimes it's better with his athleticism, his two-handed skill, to stop all of these archers shooting. Just wade in here and start clubbing every guy. I can just bob and weave, and I'm at almost no risk, even though they're parrying everything, which is not realistic. Once that hammer starts to fly, guys start getting smashed all over the place, and it's pretty much curtains for the enemy. They start to rout and shit. And this siege is over just like that. I think the Ram boys got through the front gate and mauled everything there, and then they met us here. Either way, that was a highly efficient, successful siege with this ragtag bunch. Battle finished. So we got the little interior siege portion to do here first. 43 dead, 159 injuries. That's actually more than I expected, but there were almost 800 or maybe more than 800 defenders. So under the circumstances, just fine, no problem at all. All right, we're going to blaze through this center thing. A few of these I'll actually play out. Sometimes I'll just skip these, right? Sometimes I'm just narrating, and then later on I'm like, I sounded like a stupid fuck there. I'm just going to delete that. That process there. I don't want to bore these guys. You know, once you see 20 keep sieges, you don't need to see this kind of thing anymore, right? Once you do this a few times in your own game, obviously you're just going to auto-resolve, and we will auto-resolve plenty of these. Or let our guys march through here, collect some skill points. It does benefit them from all the skill points down there. You can see at the bottom, Ragged gain skill points, so-and-so gain polearm skill. Right, these companions of ours do benefit from these. And my general experience is that you get more skill points in an actual battle instead of auto-resolving it. That said, I'm still not going to subject you guys to that over and over again. Now, this is beautiful. There's a bunch of militia here. Militia's not great, but we need all the troops we can get. I've got 138 prisoners, so I'm going to be scooping up prisoners left and right from the rest of this campaign. Now, let's see. What I want to do here. This music. I am going to edit this music, right? Every once in a while, you guys are just going to see me do this. There'll be a little blip, and that's because this new music is like incongruously playing from my playlist. We will just skip this. We will load some troops here into the garrison, and we will be right back. All right, so Qasira is left with a small garrison. It's vulnerable temporarily, but on we go here. So Medini Castle is not yet under siege, and Jamayeh is closer. This motherfucker is trying to get there This guy's trying to add to the Aserai forces. They're going to try to cut this guy. We're going to cut him off at the pass here. We're not about to let the Aserai get even more units here sieging. They already have a lot there. That's like 1,500 at least. Oh, so a little teaser. I'm going to do this from you guys. Ready? Just a little teaser for you fellas. That is part of My Little Warband mod. We are going to incorporate the My Little Warband mod. I'm not sure which episode. At some point or other, though, we're going to introduce these custom units. If you're not familiar with it, I'm going to fucking trap this guy here. The My Little Warband mod, you're basically allowed to make your own units, right? And they're capped. You can't put like... you can't give tier 1 units like 400 skill and stuff like that, right? There's rules you kind of have to follow, but you can effectively make them unique. So you can give archers a hammer, for example, and of course, that's exactly what I've done, right? I've made some interesting looking rebel units that you can access. We will be able to recruit at villages and cities. Not yet. I'm waiting for sort of the right moment in this camp, probably a difficult spot, but they will be introduced. Right, I'm hoping that it gets more difficult, right? The enemy is attacking here with a lot of troops, but you know what we're going to do here. We're just going to go inside. We're going to ruthlessly mangle this force here by getting inside this castle. We have 800. There's a large defense force already in there. We'll be outnumbered 2-1, and actually this is one of the worst game mechanics. You could just sneak in. They would never just let your whole force, these rebel leaders, and they're like, sir, there's a huge rebel force going in the postern door. How many? Oh, it's larger than the force that's inside there. Oh, send half a division over there to assault them a little bit. It'll cost them 126 troops. Sir, almost all of them got inside. Very well, siege. Right, that's just not a thing. They would make it virtually impossible for a large army to get inside. You know, they might have a way to get some troops inside, but most of the time, when a city was invested in siege like this, there weren't huge armies just entering the city. That was just not a thing. If you know historical examples where that was the case, I'd love to hear about it, because as far as I know, I've never heard of thousands or tens of thousands of troops sliding into a city under siege. All right, look at these ramparts. I have hardly ever defended this castle, which I'm glad this is happening in this campaign here. This actually, well, I guess I already blew it. We did not defend this castle, at least as far as my memory serves me, in the Aserai campaign. So it's kind of nice. We're sort of checking some of the boxes here of things that didn't happen in the Aserai campaign in this looter campaign. All right, so what do I do here? 1, 2, 3. I want to have like these 4 or 5 archer divisions and spread them out over these various different ramparts. Now, you guys, I can almost hear you saying, what the fuck, man? You tell me all the time, get the archers off the walls. Sort of. I should clarify that, right? When I do castle defense here, what you want to avoid is having them on the primary walls. You see those guys on the outer walls there? We're going to remove them. Now, I've really got to figure out my captain situation. In fact, I think at some point in this episode or next episode, I will spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes talking about and sort of fine-tuning some of my divisions, because I have a mixed bag of units right now, and I don't have the right captains with the right banners and the right weapons and stuff like that. In fact, a lot of them don't have the elite custom weapons that we've made. I am going to talk about it at length. So whether or not it's this episode or next episode, I definitely owe that to you fellas. I've said I would do that, and I need to do that for this campaign to get these guys better configured, right? They'll have elite weapons, the correct banner. We have plenty of banners. I just got to get the right guys the right banners, and I will talk about what that means, right? The right guys with the right banners. Most of this should be pretty standard, but this is a little different defense. We're going to make a little bit different defense here, because it's sort of a 2-layered, compacted castle, and there's 3 or 4 spots to put archers. Now, of course, we're going to put a huge tranche of archers down here, right? These guys down here, just look at their line of sight. Anything coming up those siege towers is going to get mangled. They've got 2 different siege towers. In fact, we'll try to destroy at least one. If we can destroy both, this castle siege will be boring. But we're going to basically just wait for those guys to come up on the wall there and get smoked. Now, to give them auxiliary fire, more archers, and also to give all the guys in the courtyard sort of a backup in case we get swarmed in the courtyard, what I'm going to do is I'm going to form 1, 2, 3. I think I'll form 3 or 4 divisions here. I've got at least 3 locations that I see archers can be placed. You see these guys need to be placed kind of narrow. Line formation is okay as long as you have a little bit of a slope. That way they can still get line of sight like being in a movie theater. But what I like to do with these side walls here, right, this wall over there, this wall in the back, is I like to get 40 to 60 archers in a line formation, and that gives all of the guys in the courtyard cover fire, right? And these archers on these back walls here are much more defended. The main thing is that they have 2 layers of shit for the enemy to shoot through, right? Those front little dividers or protecting devices. I can never remember the name of those. Please put it in the comments if you remember the name. But these guys can now shoot down into the courtyard. You see how they have beautiful line of sight, and they can shoot the guys coming up the walls still, right? So they have dual value. These guys are a little tiny bit vulnerable at the far edge there towards the front, but that's a good position as well. And then again, here, look at this shit. These guys spread out like that. Those guys are going to rain in arrows. And this keep should be pretty easy to defend. I dare say we're going to maul the enemy here with this defensive setup. We don't have a huge amount of archers, but we have a good amount, enough to really maul the enemy in siege. And more importantly, or at least just as importantly, we have an amazing amount of javelins. Our army is packed with javelins, even more so than the Aserai campaign, because we have very few shock troops, right? We have lots of brigands and lake rat wreckers and Beni Zilal units and some other units that have javelins. In particular, the lake rats, and I mentioned this before, I won't do it over and over again. This might be the last time for a while. The lake rats and the Beni Zilal have 10. Oh shit. Okay, so this is a very temporary situation here. The shots between catapults are about 12 seconds, so I'm literally counting in my head like 6 seconds, 5, 4. I'm going to get ready to dodge this shit. 2. Yeah, see, we're out of here. That shit might have smoked me. So I've got 12 seconds here intermittently in between their catapult fires to make these shots count, right? And I know another one is coming. 3, 2, here it comes. Right, and if you get hit by that shit, you're killed. Now, they're trying to kill the mangonel. This little catapult I'm on, this is very temporary here. In fact, it's very uncomfortable just to sit here under fire. I know another round is coming. We'll just... Yeah, see, that's what happens to you. You get killed like my little assistant here just got smoked. So we'll do his job for him since he's dead. And we will, I think, take 1 or 2 more shots here and get the fuck out of here. It looks like they've already destroyed one of the siege towers. But that's not safe to stand there, right? They're getting bombarded. In a siege defense, especially when you have a setup like we do here where you're micromanaging, stay alive. I've mentioned that before, but that is paramount. I just want to mention that from time to time. You must survive. All right, so that catapult down there, the enemy catapult is firing at that location. We should be safe here to fire in some flammable rounds. Damn, we hit their little protecting device. But we're going to be able to scorch the enemy here 3 or 4 good shots before they get up to the gate. God damn it. Taking the Lord's name in vain. I'm gonna get struck by a lightning bolt here. And of course I'm not doing that intentionally to aggravate you you fellow religious people. I say religious people because we all have our religion, right? I was grown up a Baptist. I almost said I was grown up a bastard. Talk about the ultimate faux pas. I was raised in a Baptist church, so to speak, right? I didn't actually, not in the church, but going to the church, right? I wasn't like growing up with my diapers between the pews. We're having a funny faux pas session here. But on a regular basis, my parents took me to a Baptist church, and I just grew out of it, to be perfectly honest. I don't hate religion. I think religion has a purpose, but I personally am not a religious person. That said, right, I respect people who want to go out and have community and have faith in something more divine than this world. So I'm not gonna blast religious people too much. Now that said, I fucking hate fanatics. I fucking despise Christian, Muslim. There aren't any Hindu fanatics, really. Maybe there's like 20 guys or something like that. But I hate religious people who take things to an extreme. Anytime a religion starts to tell other people how to live, we got a problem here, right? That's theocracy, and it doesn't work particularly well. Like if you look across the world, world history has shown that theocracy generally doesn't end well. All right, so I wanted to show you this before I went on my little religious rant there. these guys now are told to fire. The enemy's all turning their back because they're trying to get to that square, and the units melt. They're actually trying to throw javelins at us, but they might as well just fucking run the other way, right? Because we have like 100 guys here throwing javelins, and a lot of them have 10 javelins, right? So it's just an absolute Olympic javelin throwing event here. One or two guys that actually gets to hold their javelin for a second or two. They catch 3 in the hand, 2 in the shoulder, and 1 in the penis, and down they go, right? I mean, these are elite troops, and our lake rats and fucking raiders and brigands and whatnot are just scorching them to bits, right? These javelins, especially when you have a lot of them like this, it's lethal. Of course, the archers are helping here too, right? We've got all these, what do we got? We got militia, we've got bower champions, we've got some lower level bower, we got freebooters, we got some forest bandits. We've got a nice menagerie of different non-troop line units at this stage. They're pretty well diversified. We even have a few of the boss characters that you get from a hideout that we recruited. So we have like a couple desert bandit bosses and stuff like that. But these guys are still throwing javelins, right? This is just incredible, and even more diabolically, I have 2 other divisions that can do what they're doing, right? So we can simply now put that second division right where this first division is, and you can actually see the javelins sticking out of these guys' pack. Even the Lake Rat, the middle tier one also has 10 javelins, I think, or 8 javelins or something like that. And so we can simply switch these 2 units, although, shit, the enemy's coming in with shock troops. It's probably not the best time for us to move, but look at them getting scorched by the archers too, right? Don't forget, too, we don't just have the archers that are behind us here, and it was a lot. It was like 130 or something like that. There was some javelin throwers mixed in with them, too. But we have all the guys on the upper walls, right? So this courtyard really is just a fucking complete death zone for the enemy. I can actually just spread both of these archer units out and let the enemy come on in, right? These guys can hold a shield wall. I can wade in between here and just wail away. You know, I've got plenty of health still. I've got 300 and something athleticism. And at this stage, I don't know what the two-handed cap is with this little exploit or whatever you want to call it, where the smithing adds a focus point to your skill. I think it might be like 380 though, or 390, which is going to be really interesting to see. And in many ways, this is the strongest two-handed character I've ever had in any campaign, because I've never had a character with this two-handed skill, right? Basically well over the cap. In some ways, it's a bit of an exploit, but it is what it is. These are the normal game mechanics. If you have smithing skill and you have high two-handed skill, you too can do this. Now, these guys are literally throwing... It's already over? Wow, what a fucking massacre that was. I was going to say, these guys were literally throwing their javelins right in the dirt. And that's that. I mean, the whole enemy force just fucking immolated. That was as bad a whipping as you can have, even with elite troops. And we did this with mediocre troops and militia and brigands. That is amazing. And again, it really emphasizes the value of tactics, but also javelins. 28 casualties. And we killed 1,070. That is fucking savage. You see 352 two-handed for Hugh the Hammer, right? He is really becoming an absolute beast with his two-handed hammer. I'll slide this in for anybody who wanted me to continue the discussion about the French Revolution. We're just not going to inundate the early episodes of this Peasants Revolt with those. I want to sort of observe the feedback and let this campaign get a little bit of length to the bone before I just start mono fucking logging 3 hours about the French Revolution. We will try to mix it in this campaign, but I'll try to do so in a way that doesn't chase off 90% of the viewers. I do understand some of you guys are history enthusiasts and enjoy that kind of shit, but obviously there's some people that don't. So I'm trying to be the classic politician here, where I appease as many people as possible. Some people are like, just be yourself, man. Do whatever you want for yourself. Well, that's fair. But you guys also are coming here, and you guys are the ones volunteering to watch. You guys definitely have a say about the content I'm making here. That's why I say all the time, leave feedback, right? I'm not just saying that so that you guys can say shit and I can ignore you. I'm genuine about that. If you want me to talk about history less, or be perfectly honest, like if you guys, and you don't have to be like a troll about it. I'm not going to take it wrong. just say, I don't like the history that much. You don't need to do that. Or not quite as much history, right? You can literally use like a slider bar and say, just less history. I like some, but small bits and pieces, right? I will be listening and taking a pulse on all of that feedback. All right. So let's see here. We get some loot, and then we gotta restock this garrison here a little bit, and then be on our way. And you see this from time to time. A lot of the Aserai forces, it looks like because they were able to flee, we're not gonna be able to capture them. Maybe we can capture some of those guys after we even out our units here. This castle has been a nice staging ground for a lot of elite units, and as you can see, we're able to just easily replace a lot of the ones we lost. Of course, we do have a lot of looters in some of the other locations. We have a handful of locations where there are still very good bandit units to immediately firm up our army, and we will dump off some lower level ones. So let's see if we can capture these guys here. I just need to get to one of the motherfuckers.
It's been a while.
Okay, I got him. Yeah, I've caught you. What do the guys say? Yeah, we caught almost all of them here, like rats in a trap. This guy following Ayala's party. Yeah, you're going to be able to follow this party after. The only thing you're going to be able to follow are the bones of all the dead people the next day when you arrive. There's not going to be any army left here. Okay, an army, a battlefield I have very little experience on, but already I'm salivating at the tactical opportunities. Look at this hills here. There's like a ridge on the left we can manipulate. Let's see what our army looks like here. Sometimes after a battle like that, I'll do these little reconfigurations just to sort of see what we have, right? I like to get down to the ground level. Some of these units got skewed when I made a legion. I made a looter vanguard, the 8th Corps. I got to figure out some way to have a looter vanguard easily without mixing up the units. Some of the stuff you have to do for the battle size mod. All right, so I've got the crossbow division. Look at that shit. It's almost all crossbow. That's like we have like 40 or 50 Boer veterans. And we've just been taking prisoners in this campaign. Of course, a lot of this was accumulated over the first 2 or 3 years of this side campaign that I didn't film, right? You guys missed it. I basically accumulated a bunch of prisoners and minor clans and whatnot so that we could have these units for this portion here. They're not really a renewable unit here. Obviously, we're not recruiting a lot more Boer units. So 6th, 5th. What do we do here? I think we're going to make this numerically easy for both you and me to follow. I'm going to send the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in the center here, right? Basically in this lower area. Our army's going to be bifurcated here. It's going to be separated is probably a better word for it. I'm going to have the 7th and 8th actually up on this high level for us. The 1st, 3rd, 4th, and 2nd down here. The 2nd Cavalry will just be distractionary, but the 1st and 3rd are infantry divisions we can move in a square, and the 4th is crossbow we can move in a square. So our more mobile, deadly units are up here. I'm going to pull these guys up here and try to give them good line of sight, and then we'll see if we can't distract the enemy with these squares down here, and then get into good position up high. Basically a little magic trick, right? Divert the enemy down there in the valley, and then, well, we're going to fight for this here. We're going to charge. Fuck you. We're definitely not letting you guys take the high ground there, Azina. Eat shit. 285 right in the chest, and she went down. We're going to start stretching out our cav here, horse archers, and then we have a skirmisher and archer division, and the 5th division is like 100 oh no, I mixed the 6th and the 5th. I'm sorry. Anyways, the 5th and 6th though have like 120 archers, and their cav is coming up to attack these divisions, so we'll be able to move them forward here and then square them. I will sort of keep an eye on them down here, do a little babysitting for these guys. The advantage of squares, of course, is if you're getting surrounded by Jav Cav, you've got protection from behind, right? You want to move your infantry up in a situation like this, or the Khazate in squares. Once they're in position, and once they're sort of facing the enemy and there's not horse archers behind them, we will move them into shield walls. Now, we're not about to let these horse archers get up here, right? This is our fucking ridge. I don't have a high enough pitched voice to make a scream like that, but that's my favorite death sound for the women. It just sounds like the Wicked Witch being melted. And the enemy is fucked. You can just see they're fucked, right? You fans of the channel, you guys can see what's going on here, right? We're going to start moving up these Jav units. We're going to force this 400 or 500 Aserai forces, 500, 600 that are kind of tucked against the cliffs here into action. We're going to pound them with ranged units. I have all these archers now spraying them from behind. We're going to be able to move these infantry divisions up close, and then once they're close and shield wall, throw javelins at them, and then once we do that, we will surround them, right? It's kill box time. The enemy's already being scorched. You can see the arrows flying over here from our 5th, 6th, and 7th Corps, right? We have all these different archers. And I have this 7th Division that I can use in a variety of different ways, right? All these horse archers here, we can do a bunch of different things with them, right? One of the things I can actually do with these guys is actually dismount them from their horses, right? If the enemy is going to attack you in a certain location, you simply get horses in their face, dismount them, and then pull the men back, right? Now they have something else in their way that their troops have to navigate through and deal with. Now the 8th is just getting torn apart here. These weak... we really have weak cavalry in this side campaign. We'll just get the 8th and 2nd kind of out of the way here and let the rest of our troops work. Cavalry is really weak, especially when they have very weak armor like our units have and no shields. A lot of our units just don't even have a shield. So let's just push the 2nd and 8th way over here to the enemy's right. Or, excuse me, our right, the enemy's left. All right, so already the enemy's broken out. It's 500 infantry, right? They had a huge amount of infantry, and that's optimal, right? That means we're going to be able to surround this. I've already got the 3rd Division behind these motherfuckers. They're charging our 1st Division. Of course, we're going to pre-kite. They're being strafed already from the 6th Division. 4th Division can be pulled back to kite, and the coup de grace will be ramming them with all these cav, right? They will throw javelins. This is going to be a massacre. Now, it's a huge division. That's very hard for weaker troops to kill this many troops. If I had a little bit more space to kite, we would definitely take this to the nth degree. But here, I just think we need to weaken them and then collapse upon them from 3 sides. You can see they're already down 100 units, and it's going to get worse. Up come our 8th Division here. The javelins are flying. All those guys are chucking javelins. And then I'm just going to keep kiting with this 2nd and 8th. Oops, I pulled the 1st straight off the battlefield, so we'll get those guys brought back a little bit. Fuck, I think the 3rd Division is getting kind of swallowed up over there. The enemy's charging nothing. They just roared at nothing. There's a handful of the 3rd Division over there, but they're not going to get reaching those guys. You know what they're doing? They're actually splitting. Yeah, that's very interesting. All right, well, that's our time to attack then. If the enemy does split like this with 2 different infantry divisions, effectively their giant group of infantry broke into 2 different divisions. Now's your time to attack. Don't waste any time. Your forces no longer have a major tactical advantage, so don't kite. Just start charging. The 1st can be told to charge there. The 6th can move up. We do have Jav Cav coming in from behind here, and the 1st and 4th can also bore in here. You don't see the AI do this very often, but it is the best thing they can do. Now, all it's going to do is mean we have an extra 50 or 100 casualties. They can't win, but it does, I guess it does give them a few kills by splitting like that. I remember a game called Dark Age of Camelot that I played a long time ago, where one of the things you could do is you could do what was called bodyguarding a character. And what that effectively meant is that you could give up your ability to attack and move by standing next to somebody, and they were impervious to melee. It was just a little game mechanic, and it was a fun idea. And what would happen if the enemy was doing that, right, and these were real players, if they were bodyguarding somebody, you would split. And instead of attacking all that unit with the same... with all your units, you would then attack multiple of their units individually, negating the effect of that bodyguard. That's kind of what happened there. The enemy was like, split. You can almost hear them as players in Dark Age of Camelot calling out a split. I really miss those days, actually. There's like 1 or 2 guys on the channel that have said they played Dark Age of Camelot. Of course, it was a small game back in the day, so it didn't have... and it was a long time ago. It was like before a lot of you guys were even playing video games. This is 20 years ago. But it was a lot of fun because it was like Dark Age with a lot more strategy and just less units. Of course, there weren't NPCs running around, or very few NPCs. Anyways, enough of that nonsense. You guys don't give a shit. So we'll do some upgrades here. I've got an Imperial Veteran Archer that's snuck into our backfield somehow, so we'll root that guy out and give him the boot. We're not running around with these Imperial units, right? Some are going to sneak in. Our companions will recruit them and shit like that. And I'm a little bit unsure of how to do the little warband mod. I'm concerned if I don't have the settings right that my companions will recruit normal troops if they're just loose out there, and obviously I don't want that. Some of that's just inevitably going to happen, right? We're following these rules I've set for ourselves. They're totally artificial. Sometimes the rules are going to be broken by accident. Now, you're not going to see me go recruit a bunch of Fiend champs. Yeah, we're having babies here, right? It's a good day for Hugh the Hammer and Rayma, his axe-murdering wife. I mean, you think that baby's going to be a savage? Axe-murdering wife and Hugh the Hammer is the father. This is not going to be a bartender. This is going to be a future mass murderer. All right. There's a Zerg of Southern Empire forces attacking here again with these small armies. I see this more and more again. I see this a lot when the enemy seems to be getting desperate. They don't have a huge army, and so a bunch of the little armies will assault a citadel. You'll see so-and-so is assaulting and so-and-so is assaulting, and it's like a pig pile. Well, here it's going to cost them everything, right? We're going to... Yeah, I think we'll just fight this out in the open, right? At this stage, like, our army is becoming so savage that we don't even need to go inside the citadel, even though that would be effective. Don't forget, we lose something like 100 troops by sneaking inside the city. Let's avoid that and just carve this force out in the open. Now, one of these battles, we're going to meet our maker, or at least our match. Hopefully we don't meet our maker. We're going eventually to run into a really powerful force that gives us the fight of the campaign, gives us a fight where we either lose, have to retreat, or flat out get captured. But I don't think this is the one here to ruin your suspense. Yeah, I did that. All right, in we go here. We've got almost 900 troops. Part of the reason is that we have very high-end troops here. I would say we have 100, maybe 150 looters tops in our army right now. We've got a lot of our looters actually defending castles and garrisons. All right, so I've got a nice ridge around here to the left to give cover to some of our ranged units. It's a variation of a peekaboo ridge, right? A lot of our archers, horse archers, jav cav, we will set up on the left there using that mountain ridge to give them cover. And as the enemy comes around, they will get shredded by this blindside fire. I think I'm going to send our main 3 infantry divisions. Maybe we'll keep one of these divisions near us, but I think I'm going to use them as basically sacrificial squares. We'll send them out. They can throw javelins and whatnot, but they will wander out in basically bracketed squares. And then, of course, we can support as we need to with cavalry. Little different tactics here, right? And slowly but surely, I'm sort of figuring out exactly what kind of tactics I want to use with this army, right? This is a highly unusual army. We've got this crossbow division still. It's not quite 40 or 50. Actually, maybe it's over 50. The Boer champions. Not all of them are Boer champions. Of course, some of them are the lower level Boer units, but those guys are upgrading too. They're kind of the equivalent of a middle tiered sharpshooter, right? They're like a tier 4 or tier 3 Valandian crossbow. They're not great, but at least they have a shield, right? That's very valuable in our army where many of our units don't have shields. All right, so let's get the 5th, 7th, 8th, and we can bring the 2nd over as well. And these other divisions, what I like about the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, or 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 6th, 1st, 3rd, 4th, and 6th, is that those guys can all square, right? All those guys have lots and lots of shields, Sea Raiders and whatnot, and those guys can square, meaning that as they're being swarmed by the enemy infantry, enemy cavalry, archers, they have protection. And then, of course, in a moment's notice, you guys can unsquare those guys, or you guys, we can unsquare them, turn them into line formation or shield wall, and then have them unleash hell. All right, we'll get the 2nd Cav Division off to the side here. They're sending in a little pathetic horse archer attempt here. These guys are going to get destroyed. This is like 30 horse archers charging. We probably have 300 archers when you count our horse archers. You got a dumb bitch lord running up here. Yeah, and they're getting javelins thrown at them as well. Their fucking horses are flying through the air. Yeah. The only thing that did positive for the enemy is it caused us to use a bunch of javelins. They had 0 chance of scoring major kills there. All right, so we'll square these divisions, and I have archers, skirmishers on this left flank, our left flank, and we have this horse archer division. I can move all the way towards the front here and then take them off their horses, right? And this will give all of our troops a little bit of protection in case they're charged by cavalry. The enemy has a very powerful vanguard coming up. I can just look at it and see there's lots of legionaries and other tough infantry, but we're going to square and retreat, right? We're basically going to kite with that division, pull them into the maelstrom of javelins, and they will be destroyed. All right, let's get this now archer division. It was horse archers. Now it's just archers. They're sort of reserve archers because they're our weakest archers. That said, I think the mounted pillagers, or mounted, what are they called? Something like that. They're a tier 2 bandit on a horse. I think they have two bags of arrows, which is really valuable. Even though they're not doing a lot of damage, at least they're shooting for a long time. I basically just tanked that whole cav division myself. And even though I lost half my health, I really slowed them down. All right, perfect. They're trying to eat the square. We'll pull the square right into our belly here, right into this maw of death. And now they're going to get completely shredded from the edges here with javelins. Look at them vigorously chasing this square. Almost getting stabbed here. You can just see the arrows shredding through here, the javelins. You got guys just firing one javelin after another right into the backs of those legionaries. There's horses flying everywhere. These archers are just point blank firing on their cavalry, and even though we're facing high level units here, it's just fizzing green death spam. They just charged our square, so that means they're still eating the square. We're going to keep pulling these guys back, right? It's basically pulling them right into this maw of death. You can see the enfilade fire that those archers have, right? It's just a stream of arrows flying in there, and the death spam tells you all you need to know. The enemy's being fucking wasted here. Let's get the 4th and 3rd pushed up onto this hill here. I've also got the 6th. Those guys can charge. We can add to their misery. They're going to score some kills with this Vanguard, right? Because it's, what, 100 guys still. But listen to the arrows. They're in a maelstrom here. I'm just standing in it. Of course, there's no friendly fire, thank goodness. But talk about getting shredded, right? Those guys are fucking shredded. The archers are just shooting them in the back. And those archers are like, this is fucking great. Imagine being an archer in that army. They're like, fuck yeah, bring some more elite infantry with their shields pointing the other way. We like that shit. Mikey likes it. All right, at this stage, now we want to annihilate this infantry. So I'm bringing cavalry towards me because I want to make sure they can't retreat, right? We're going to cut down every single militia here, or every single infantry, rather, so they can't join the rest of their forces. So we're just bringing in this Jav Cav behind the infantry. We're charging with an infantry division, and we're going to try to basically kill most or all of that infantry. Now, I'd like to, let's see, what do we do here? Start moving in archers, but we're also going to start moving our infantry in here with shield walls. They've got a ton of archers there, counter-firing, right? For once, the enemies got a little bit of an archer advantage on us, but we're going to simply turn their flank with archers, bore into them with cavalry, and destroy them. I can bring the 5th and the 7th up. In fact, this ridge up here, just like the last battle, it's a different ridge, but it's the same idea, right? We can spread out archers on the enemy's flank, pin them down in the center with the division, send cavalry to the far side, and then bore in on them with infantry divisions. This is going to be nasty. Yeah, I've said it before. A static enemy should be a dead enemy, right? They do have their archers set up pretty well. We're going to suffer losses here for sure. We're sending units up in shield wall, but it's not like they block every arrow. But I like our setup here. These archers are moving over more or less unshot, too, because they're kind of over the edge of this ridge. And then what I'll be able to do is charge. I've got to get cav support, though. Otherwise, they'll come down. It'll be like a reverse peekaboo ridge for the enemy. And they will scorch those archers. Let's actually hold these guys still. Their infantry's charging here, so the archers are probably behind. We need to get this cav division driven through the rest of their archers. So I told you I had that cav division sent to the other side. Let's go ahead and bring this cavalry division. Even though they're weak cavalry, it's still going to knock the enemy all over the place, right? If you can get a bunch of cavalry running through their archers, you'll obviously cause a lot of them to be interrupted. They'll be trying to swing their pathetic little weapons at horses running by, and the next thing you know, they're strafed by all these archers we have coming down the ridge. They're reaching some of these archers here. There's a big mob of peasants kind of attacking the archers as they come down the hill here. But I think the rest of our forces are going to provide enough damage that it's not going to matter. This is going to be bloody, though, right? This is a lot of forces still. The enemy has a whole bunch of forces pouring in. That's it. Look at the enemy, right? The units are weak, and that is because the Southern Empire is getting exhausted. Anybody who watched most or all of the Aserai campaign noticed this as well. Even with the Strength and AI mod. Oh shit, I almost died by that hit. Try not to get killed. Attack cavalry. Even with the Strength and AI mod, the enemy does eventually get war exhausted because they simply run out of troops. There's not enough time for them to upgrade units, etc. I'm going going to join our units here, right? There's a huge brawl in the middle. Our guys are pushing forward. In fact, we can get these skirmishers to kind of lead the way for me because I have almost no health. And we're going to push in and try to finish the rest of these archers. Shit. You guys block, I'll kill. Keep our head down here. We're going to go down soon. We have no health. But we've got their archers on the run now. Let's push in here. The spam, the death spam just turned incredibly green. Their archers are trying to reform right in the... Oops. Well, down he goes. All right, what do we got here? We got a camel rider, Jamayeh the Falcon. This is definitely an F1, F3 situation right now. Our infantry is already boring in on them, so you just want to charge. Keep the pressure on them. And then my job here will be to drive cavalry through the back ranks of the archers. Make sure that this 50 guys back here can't shoot, right? We're going to just drive these guys right through here. Get some skill perk points for Jamayeh the Falcon. And end this battle in style. Got a nice big tall camel. We've got like 4 or 5 companions on camels, and the camels in this campaign are enhanced. They're a little bit better than vanilla Bannerlord. They're a little taller. They do a little bit more charge damage. They run a little bit faster, and I think they have a few more hit points. Now, their armor is still weak. They still go down pretty easy, but it's better than vanilla camels. I've always thought it was like offensive that just camels were worthless. I mean, especially considering like the Jawal, that's like that's what they ride on. This poor gal here is just getting fucking absolutely prison raped, medieval style. She looks like she's going to get away. I'm going to chase after her here with my rocket speed camel. Come on, camel. I'm like spurring this thing. And the battle's over. Now, right in the fucking kidney. Down she goes. And a glorious victory here. Now, of course, you know, one of these battles, we may have a bad death. We do have the death for all mod cranked up. In fact, the enemy had a death, but not us. So another just glorious ass whipping here, right? That was, what, 1,500 pretty strong Southern Empire forces. And look at these fucking guys. Our mounted pillagers. He has 2 quivers of arrows. And this guy here, he looks like a zombie. His face is covered. It looks like he's been biting someone for the last half hour. What have you been doing, man? I'm not sure I trust that guy. Let's keep an eye on him. If he starts getting up and staggering around with the moon, we might have to put a stake into his chest. But these guys are getting the job done, right? These mounted pillagers, and it's fucking beautiful. And they're free, right? I do realize that's a big advantage for us, but I'm willing to keep that advantage, right? If that means that we end up winning this campaign, so be it. Right, we're going to still win this campaign with a lot of looters and mounted ransackers and shit like that, and no regular troop line, right? Again, we're not using the Aserai Faris and whatnot, Battanian Fiend champs. You won't see any of those in our army. At least you won't see any of those intentionally in our army here. All right, trucking through everything. I need to get a little bit of water here. We'll zoom our map out just a bit here. And another one of those instances where I'm going to change the song. My random playlist kind of, sometimes it tends to do this. It's just blaring a loud, exciting track when I want something a little bit more subtle, because we've got a little bit of maintenance to do here in between castles. So a little bit of quick editing. Hopefully you don't even notice. And the beauty of editing here, right? We just Alt-Tab, change the music a little bit so it's not blaring loud music in the background. I've always struggled to have too loud of music in some of these campaigns. Sometimes that shit just happens, right? I like some good background music for these battles, for these episodes, but obviously I don't want it just absolutely roaring in your ear for these episodes. So what next here, right? It might be time to consolidate here. I'm looking for, damn it, we lost our little alley. That's of no consequence. Of course, I can go in there and just whip those bandits' ass anytime I want, take over the alleyway. Our army is up to bigger things than trying to hold a little alleyway in some city. What I actually want is some looters here. Here we go. I ask and you shall receive. There's a nice big batch of looters here. Our army is getting a little bit dwindled. Losses, attrition, stocking some garrisons. And you see how this works, right? These bands of looters, they're not everywhere. But they're kind of, you know, there's a smattering of them a sprinkling of them all around the battlefield map here. And even though it's taken me about a day to chase these guys down as they run away, I can just stock up our ranks, right? Don't worry, we're not looking for a fight today, but we need you guys to die for us in future battles here, right? The Mounted Pillager Tier 2 and a bunch of Tier 1 looters, we'll take them, right? Because these guys can go into garrisons. These guys, you can picture them holding our flag at the local city as these guys defend our frontier here, right? 170 looters. We must have 250 looters now total in the army here as we spread them around to these various different troops. Various different troop armies, right? We got Wahan the Golden, we've got Zahara the Spice Vendor, and we have Talia Willowbark. I am thinking about leveling up one of the player, it's like my brother or something like that, because he has some really high skills, attribute points to get his medicine skill up, but we'll see. That might take a little bit of time before I introduce him in this campaign. So you see the process here, right? We just load up with mounted ransackers, and just like that, our army's up a couple hundred units. They're weak, granted, but just like that. So Askar is probably too heavy duty for us to siege right now. I'm gonna head north here, and I think it might be time to give you guys the long-deserved discussion about custom weapons. So I don't know how to do this here. We might just do a little bit of editing and jump right into that. It's going to take me a little bit of time to get up there. I'd also like to take Ukba Castle. Nothing else. There's no action going on, so this is kind of like the perfect time for us to do this. Hassan Folk is starting to get low on food, but I still think we can do this and move along here. Now I'm just fucking muttering to myself. All right, we'll do a little bit of editing here, and then some custom weapon stuff. All right, so we're gonna add this to the end of the episode here. A few days of action has happened. Nothing really worth sharing to you guys. We took Ukba Castle, and while it looks like there's a large defense force, of course, surprise, surprise, it's a bunch of looters and ransackers. So their defense is skin deep, right? It's very much a thin defense line there. Now, at the end of this episode, we're going to talk about custom weapons. We're going to talk a little bit about our group and army strategy. We're going to talk about our army makeup, and we're going to look at things like banners for captains. In fact, I'm going to talk about most of the characters extensively in this last section. I realize this may not be the most thrilling session for most people, but we're going to have this for the enthusiasts that are trying to sort of get the most out of their army and understand why I make some of the decisions I do with my captains and with my army. Now, we were overstaffed there. We actually had some deserters after picking up some looters. So the first thing I'm going to do here is just enhance the garrison here at Sanala. This will just take a second. In fact, I see a few Aserai units we've got to jettison. These troops keep sneaking their way in here and there. Sturgeon, Heroic Linebreaker, and stuff like that. A lot of this stuff I'll try to do when you guys aren't watching, because I don't want to waste your time. Now let's look at our army makeup, right? A very balanced army, an even amount of infantry, cavalry, and archers for the most part. We've got some high-level boss units. We've got some Tier 4 mercenaries, right? Like these highwaymen are pretty decent little Jav cavalry. Notice they have a shield and a spear. We've got more cavalry here. Again, a common theme, javelins, right? Almost all of our units, it seems like, has a javelin. I don't know if that's because the scummiest units, it's the easiest thing to learn is throwing a sharp pole, but for whatever reason, even these guys, which are the closest thing we have to shock troops, they have javelins as well. Now these guys have a nice mix of weapons. They have a shield, a one-handed weapon, javelins, and an axe, but we don't have many traditional shock units. Of course, we have archers. We've got some crossbow, we've got some weaker minor clan archers, we've got militia, and more brigands. And again, notice the theme, javelins. So one of the obvious strengths of our armies is javelins, and we need to spec out our captains to benefit them the most. These guys, these little weak infantry, don't even have a shield. So shield is actually one of the rarest things in our army here, as I jettison some of these Aserai troops that keep sneaking into our ranks. What that means is that shields are extra valuable, right? So our borer units, we have like 30 or 40 borer crossbow units. They're really valuable. So are any of the other units like the Jawal that have a shield. All right, now let's see what we do here. So let's look at these individual characters, right? Again, the army's very balanced. So let's see the easiest way to do this. From this screen here, I could show you both their inventories and also, let's see, we could show you their skill set and their inventory at the same time from here, right? So Hugh the Hammer has a huge skill set, right? He's got Grand. He's got 2 custom hammers, right? And these are all custom from his smithing skill that we artificially added to him. It's one of the benefits that we're assigning to our army for this series. And notice the difference, right? The length and the speed. One of them is longer. One of them is much faster and shorter, right? That's because one of them is a hand-to-hand hammer and the other one is a hammer that I use on horseback, right? I could use a 2-handed sword or something like that, but this hammer is so fast and so long that I find Grand to be superior, right? This 136 lengths and 89 speed, that is very high on both ends. For javelins, of course, we're using the custom large bags of elite javelins, and if you compare them to like a Jareed or anything like that, they're just superior. That's all there is to it, right? When you go to the large bag of Jareeds, the Jareeds are basically worse in every category except missile speed, which is not a real big factor. So we've got these custom javelins. That means he has a lot of them. Now, what kind of banners do you want to put on your guys, right? In this case, he has decreased taken melee attack damage. Well, you could argue that Hugh the Hammer could really be the captain for 3 or 4 different divisions. I'm actually going to make him a division captain based on the rest of the decisions. In other words, I'm going through right now and sort of fine-tuning who's going to be in charge of what division based on logical sense, right? So you could see his stats. He's really capable of being any division leader. Now, this guy's one of our lower level. He's like a brother or something of Hugh the Hammer. He's leveling up his crossbow skill, and notice he has 2 bags of bolts, right? There's no character in the game, as far as I'm aware of, that has 2 bags of bolts, right? That means he has lots of ammunition. In fact, I think we can upgrade this guy here. I'm going to do a few upgrades through the course of this, but we also want to give this guy a better polearm, right? He's got this pilum. It's kind of a pathetic thing. And look how slow like a pole sword would be. Well, this guy's fighting on foot. We want to make sure he has a fast, reasonably long polearm. You don't want to be super long, of course, because then he'll never be able to swing it at anybody. Something like this 230 length would be way too slow, right? Just think of him in a melee line. He's not going to hit anybody. Look at how fast some of these guys are, right? 94 swing speed. It's not as fast as the pilum, but it's going to fucking obliterate units. And it's a 2-handed polearm, so it's going to do major damage. You could picture him swinging that overhead. Now, I'm not really going to cover his banner too much. This guy's not going to be a captain leader. Not all of our companions, of course, are leading groups. Notice this guy's sword. I've experimented a little bit with these super fast swords, and there is value to it. In a melee line, having some guys with an incredibly fast weapon speed has value. I've seen these guys basically rack up kills because their opponent on the other side simply can't outswing their weapon speed. 109 swing speed with the shield, this guy's very capable. Now, ironically, the AI has been using the 2-handed weapon, hence his 2-handed skills are going up, right? The AI basically has the choice of what weapon they use, and for whatever reason, the AI is actually choosing to use his 2-handed weapon. So if I wanted him to use his 1-handed weapon, of course, we would just remove his 2-handed and give him more javelins. This guy will not be traditionally a captain because his skills are inferior. Now, this guy has one of the most rounded skill sets of anybody. Look at that. All kinds of throwing and polearm and 1-handed, 2-handed. This guy does it all. He's not elite anywhere, but a lot of those early levels, the 120, 150, that's where you get your big perks. And accordingly, he has all the weapons. He has a polearm, he has a shield, he has a sword, and then he also has javelins. Now, we can give him this better polearm because this guy is going to be a captain for us, right? In fact, it makes sense that this guy would be our defensive captain because he's got a nice big shield, he's got some decent combat ability, he's got lots of perks, and we can give him this. Decreased taken melee attack damage, so Thace will now lead our 1st division. Now, his sword needs upgrading. We'll do that. We'll cover that as well. But he's got some decent javelins. You can see, again, he literally has every skill. He shoots a bow, crossbow, and this is one of the characters that married into our family. This is not a companion. Anybody wondering how the fuck you get all those skills? we're going to give him this weapon here. Look at this thing, Masterwork Falx, and it's basically better in every single area. It's the same speed, but it's better, both massively damage and much longer. Right? This is a no-brainer. Much better than the tier 6 weapon that he came with. Now shields, let me talk about shields a little bit too, right? He's got his nice pole arm. You want your shield to be big. I know it's kind of obvious, but there's all kinds of shields to select from, including tier 6 shields. And if you're going to have a defensive captain, I want them to have huge shields, right? You want these guys to have robust shields so that they can defend themselves. All right, so this guy here is an archer, right? He's got 237 bow skill, and so this guy more than likely is going to be leading our 5th archer division. Now, there's a lot of different philosophies on what kind of a banner you could give an archer captain. Generally, I like this, either taken ranged attack, decreased taken ranged attack damage, or I prefer movement. That way they can bail out of there. Again, he's got one of those super fast swords. That way, with his decent weapon skill, he can defend himself. But you really don't want your archers attacking in melee. Things have gotten bad at that stage if they're doing that. That's just in case we have to have him play defensive. He can do so. I need to upgrade his bow. And anytime we can, right, we're going to go with the noble longbow. Again, you could go with speed for archers. I like decreased taken ranged attack damage and then just better positioning. This gal, we're not going to assign her in charge of anything. So just a quick glance at her stuff and we'll move on. I'm trying to make sure this isn't 45 minutes. All right, now this guy has an interesting skill set. A lot of our guys are pretty generic. What I mean by that is they have athleticism, a weapon skill, and throwing. We don't have very many archers or crossbow units. We have a lot of throwers, javelin throwers. That's because I knew I would have a lot of bandit units with javelins. So this guy here, he's got a sword, a shield, and 2 javelins, but I think you can make an argument for at least one of your javelins divisions to be a kiting javelin division, right? That way they have lots of javelins, and every time the enemy melee tries to run after them, they run away, right? So we could assign this guy in charge of the 6th Corps, for example, give him extra javelins here. In fact, we're going to give him 2 different stacks where there's 7. That way he has at least 14, and actually with the perks they end up having closer to 30. There's a bunch of perks that gives you plus to this ammunition and plus to that ammunition, or maybe he'll have 20. And that's going to allow him to stand at range and chuck nasty javelins into the enemy for a long time. Now, we want to have a good shield with this division, right? Because they are going to be in shield wall sometimes. And shields are very important, right? Let's spend 20 seconds on shields. When they're in a shield wall, you want either that shield, like a tall heater shield, or something like this, right? Because when they're next to each other, not only does that look awesome, but it has great coverage. And anybody, of course, who tries to shoot an arrow at a sturgeon shield wall knows that those sturgeon shields are hard to get through. So his weapon is worth talking about as well briefly. Notice it's a one-handed and a two-handed. That's nice, right? Because that means this guy, the AI, has the option. You see he has 135 two-handed skill, that third one down. He can whip out his two-handed skill, and all of a sudden he's doing more damage, right? The AI basically decides when that's appropriate. Now, if you want a guy to only use a two-handed or a one-handed weapon, make sure they only have a weapon that can be, I mean, that's pretty obvious, right? Only used in a one-handed or two-handed form. We have some legendary weapons that are borderline alternatives for this, but there's something to be said for having a weapon that is both one-handed and two-handed. That versatility for some of the characters can be nice. When's a good example of when they're going to switch to a two-handed? Against archers, right? If a guy all of a sudden is wading in against archers, the archers are no longer shooting, you might as well just have a gigantic weapon to cut them apart. That guy we're not going to use. So Calradia is another character that we're leveling up, but we're leveling him up in a different way, and I'll explain. This guy is eventually going to be one of our party leaders. Right now, he has virtually 0 skills in leadership and medicine. What we're going to do is actually reassign one of our army groups and put him in charge, right? I will go in here. Let me show you him first. Calradia. Notice his skills for weapons aren't bad, right? He's only got 3 attribute points for vigor. He's basically going to be a horse archer unit or a foot archer unit. However, this guy here is going to be a boss party leader, right? His weapon skills and whatnot are not going to be terrific, but with 9 intelligence points and a bunch of points put pushed into engineering, steward, medicine, leadership. This guy is eventually going to be an outstanding party leader, far better even than Zahara the spice vendor. So what we can do is simply replace her in the army. We just say disband, or not disband, but I would like to change the army leader. We put him in charge, and then it takes an hour or two for that to happen, and voila, the spice vendor rejoins the army, and now we can add this guy to our main army, allowing him to start power leveling, right? His scouting, tactics, steward, all that shit's going to go through the roof because his learning rate is like fucking 30 times or whatever. It's maxed out practically. All right, where was I here? Let's see. All right, she's not going to have significant impact in this campaign, not unless people start dying, but her brother is, right? This guy's one of our best archers. In fact, if you note, he's one of our best horse archers. I've been training him on foot a little bit, and that was to get those extra points to vigor and whatnot, endurance and whatnot. You really do want to level up their athleticism if you can, but this guy's going to ride a horse, swing his glaive, and have lots of arrows to shoot, right? He has legendary step arrows, so he has lots of arrows. Now, generally, for a guy like this, he's going to be in charge of the horse archer division. Even though he's riding a camel, the riding perks, all of those bow perks will translate to, or at least help, our little mounted, what are they called? Mounted pillagers or whatever. They're basically looters on a horse. All right, so this guy's going to be our melee cavalry. That's sort of an oxymoron, or more accurately, our defensive cavalry captain. Again, for our army, that's kind of an oxymoron because we don't have a lot of strong armored cavalry. It really hasn't worked so far when I've tried to use cavalry in a shield wall line. They just kind of melt because they don't have good armor, and a lot of them don't even have fucking shields. So this is going to be a little bit of an experiment, but as you can see, of course, he's got riding skill, one-handed, a little bit of throwing. He would be highly beneficial for perks for a cavalry division, a spear cavalry division. Again, not a terrific skill set. Well, since he's going to be a melee block, right, the kind that you'll hear me all the time, cavalry's in a shield wall, he needs to have this banner, right? This steel banner decreases the melee he takes. That means when the cataphract is wailing away at him with their sword, he doesn't get mauled. That'll help him a little bit, and all the units in his division. Rayma. So Rayma's got a really mixed outfit. She's the wife. She's this quite nice looking wife, if I do say so myself, of Hugh the Hammer. And she has a very offensive skill set. Now, to be fair, she actually has a balanced skill set. You can see she has one-handed skill. She actually has higher polearm skill than two-handed. And so she's going to be leading one of our attacking divisions for sure, right? Lots and lots of perks. And I'm actually kind of thinking about it right now. It actually makes more sense for her to have a polearm, right? Her polearm skill is much higher. Generally, the AI uses a polearm pretty well on horse, kind of like the cons guards. So we can actually change her out. Now, we've got some really nice two-handed axes. We could put on a two-handed axe. Let's see. I got this shit upside down here. I like to have it at the top. Apologies. We have a couple of really nice custom crafted two-handed weapons, right? If I was going to do an axe with her, that would probably be the choice. It's faster and yet almost the same reach with better handling. In this case, though, I actually think it makes sense for her to use a polearm just because she's got higher polearm skill, 207 to 177. That's not that big of a deal, but it's significant enough that I think it makes sense. We also have a number of different units that are already two-handed heavy. So I've got a variety of different polearms to use. Speaking of polearms, right? I like a fast polearm that has a length between 150 and 170. Now, how does the AI do with different lengths? To be perfectly honest, I don't know. Maybe I'll start tracking it, right? We can run her with a particular polearm and then change it. We'll note how many kills she gets before she gets dropped, and then we can change it and see if it's much higher with, for example, a longer, slower polearm. That's something perhaps somebody else has tested. I've never tested that. Generally, though, I do notice that companions that have polearms on horse do quite well, right? If you've ever been knocked off and killed from your horse by a cons guard, the AI does a pretty good job of using polearms on a horse. So 3 tranches of javelins, right? 3 groups of javelins with the polearm. That's going to make her an offensive, destructive force. Now, if she's going to have all that, you don't want her fighting in melee, so we're going to give her ranged attack damage. In other words, she's probably going to lead either a Horse Archer division or the 8th Corps, a bunch of other Jav Cav, right? That way they can run around and stay moving, and they're going to get hit by melee a lot less often. I just kind of made the decision that she'll now command the 8th Corps, and I'm probably going to move Hugh the Hammer to something like the 3rd Corps, which is a melee infantry division. All right, Zahara the Spice Vendor, I mentioned her before. She's got 200 crossbow, so she will lead the crossbow division. Now, if you have a crossbow division, they usually have shields, right? Otherwise, there's no point. They're just archers with bolts. If you have a crossbow division, they have the ability to square, right? So increased troop movement speed doesn't really help them as much. What's more important is either decreased taken melee attack damage, or even better, if you're just using them to fend off Jav Cav, Horse Archers and stuff like that, I think it actually makes more sense decrease taken ranged attack damage and then try to keep these guys out of melee, right? These guys can square up if they're being swarmed by Horse Archers, but you don't really want them throwing down with enemy Legionary and stuff like that. They will get rolled up. All right, so pretty comprehensive, right? We could change out a few weapons here, a few of these different characters. We can just basically give them a better axe. Like I said, my philosophy on axes is very simple. Almost all weapons, speed kills, right? Your weapon that swings faster is more likely to hit the enemy before they hit you. As long as it's not way too short, fast is better, right? And again, we have all these different options. We could give him like a super long polearm. This one, you notice the length, 230, right? So this polearm is not that much slower than the one he has right now and is incredibly long. Let's run an experiment. Who kills more, Ragged or Rayma? And that'll sort of give us an idea of whether the longer polearm is better or a shorter, deadlier one. Another upgrade we can do here. Again, every single time we can have a faster polearm, you're going to see me generally swap to that, with the exception of Ragged. We'll run a little experiment to see if the long polearms do okay. Now this guy's just he was our alley boss or whatever they're called. I'm not going to give him my best polearm here. I'm kind of saving that in case somehow Hugh the Hammer eventually wears a polearm, wields a polearm. I don't think I'll change that guy's polearm. Some of these companions are less important than others. You really do want to have some primary companions that you're rooting for, that you try to level up and take them into hideouts and stuff like that to get as many EXP as you can for these fellas. And again, we have some of these super fast axes, but I'm just not going to go into that. All right, well, we're going to wrap this episode up. Of course, if you want to see more from our channel, you want to subscribe, friends, you want to hit that notify button, please leave any comments you might have. Hit that like button, like I said, and I will see you, friends, next time.